daytime in the Savage Nation. Hello, infidels. Give me 15 minutes and I'll give you America. It's amazing. It's the first show I've done in the daylight. I mean, my eyes hurt me. I need sunglasses. I've been doing night shows for so long. I don't know what it's like to be alive and awake during the day. Normally at this hour, I'm in an Indian buffet getting ready to become comatose to take a nap for the night show. But since I'm now doing a live drive time show on the East Coast, I mean, forget about lunch. I have to go to a breakfast buffet in a bad hotel. I'll tell you about that tomorrow morning. We're also going to talk about the scam, the global warming scam artists who are trapped on the ice, for example, in the Antarctic. How much did that cost us? How much did the world pay for these snotty elitists to get stuck on the ice? How many icebreakers need to be sent for these losers? Number two, how much carbon was expended in icebreakers, in helicopters, in aircraft to take these academic microcephalics off the ice? You understand what I'm talking about. Truthfully, I believe that we need to demand reparations from the entire global warming industry, starting with Al Gorleone. Let's start with Al's planes, trains, and other apparati that he's been able to buy with the global warming scam. That would go a long way towards creating some equality in the United States of America. WABC, Andrew, you're the next up on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Yes, you went a long way from the son of an immigrant having to wear dead man's pants to number one in radio.
That's interesting. Yep. Well, it is that's one of my favorite stories is Dead Man's Pants. I wouldn't say unfortunately it's true. It is true. I didn't want to wear Dead Man's Pants, but that's what I wore. But here we are. Now, you know what's interesting? You raised that topic. My father was an immigrant. My grandfather was an immigrant. They didn't need any government to help them work. They died poor. They told me the baton was passed to me as man-child in the promised land. I was born here. They told me I'd have to work to get what I wanted, and work I did. I mean, it took me 20 years in some cases to get what I wanted, but I didn't ask the government to help me. I just asked the government to get out of my way. In fact, the government stood in my way. After I got my doctorate from the University of California, they said white men need not apply. They said we need to be fair. We need to be equal. Well, take a look at your universities today. Take a look what they're teaching them there. That's fairness. That's what it leads to. Fairness is a code word for something else. You can fill in the blanks. Don't be confused by the rhetoric. It's the new communism. And I'll explain it in great detail over the next months and years. Right here on the Savage Nation. Be here or be nowhere. There aren't that many. They're a small faction of academic losers, a very tiny percentage of politicians, and yet they pretend they speak for the people. They don't speak for the people. I have a simple solution to save America. I don't think it could be enacted because the Republicans don't exist and there's no guts out there. But here's the answer. And I'll give it to you real simple. You go on unemployment insurance, you lose the right to vote. You get welfare, you lose the right to vote. And then you have an incentive to find a job and get off unemployment. Then you vote again. Because if you continue to grant the right to vote to people who are sucking the system dry, we will all lose. There'll be nothing left. Look at Cuba. Look at every other Marxist country on the planet. And take a look at what happens when you let the people dictate the terms of a nation. They will eat you alive like locusts. They will decimate the middle class. They will take every dime out of your pocket, and they'll still say it's unfair because you may have a better pair of shoes, a better house, and a better wife. They'll want your shoes, your house, and your wife. That's the way it works. You go on welfare? Too bad. Okay, we'll take care of you, but here's what's going to happen. You're not voting while you're on welfare. Then the people who work and pay taxes can determine the course of the nation, the ship, the nation. You can determine the direction of the ship if you have a vote in it. How can you have a vote in it if you're busy working? And the so-called progressive academic communist socialist movement has nothing to do but scheme around the clock on methods to steal the real democracy, the shreds of democracy that are left in this nation. What do you think of my idea? Should people on welfare lose the right to vote and regain it when they are off welfare? What's wrong with that idea? Tell me what is wrong with that idea. Where is it written in the social contract that if you're living on the back of my labor, you should have the same rights and benefits that I have? Tell me where it's written. Tell me where it's written that if you're sticking your fingers in my pocket to take half of my salary away from me before I even get it, that you should have the same rights in determining the course of the ship of state. Tell me where it's written. Show me where. Show me where that's written. How could it be that there are more people on federal disability payments right now, over 12 million grifters on federal disability under Obama, than there are people living in the nation of Greece? 12 million Americans. Don't tell me they're all disabled. You know they're not. How'd you like to call with some disability horror stories? Maybe it's your neighbor. Maybe it's your brother-in-law. Maybe it's the deadbeat pot smoker next door. Don't get me started on the toxicants and marijuana. And don't tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. It's the most dangerous of all drugs. Marijuana is being used to completely ensnare the dopers in this country so they don't even know what's going on around them. Why do you think it's called dope? Why do you think that drug is called dope? Because that's what it does to your brain. But that's another topic for another day. And before you call me up and say this, say that, just Google toxicants in marijuana, and you'll find out that you're killing yourself slowly. Marijuana smoke has more toxicants in it than tobacco smoke. But you wouldn't know that because it's natural, isn't it? Well, tobacco's also natural. It is. Curare is natural. There are many natural poisons. Marijuana is one of them. 855-400-7282. There's a lot of topics, and we can't do them all in first minute, my friends, but we can do them all over time. Now let's take some callers. Let's go to, this is an amazing station. WJR is a station in Detroit that everyone in the history of radio has ever wanted to be on. I'm on it live. It's part of the Cumulus Crown. WJR, Kathy, welcome to the Savage Nation. What's on your mind?
Hi, welcome to Daytime in Detroit. I live outside of Detroit, and I am loving listening to you. I've never heard you before. Today's the first time.
Oh, it's the first day of the rest of your radio life, I can assure you of that.
You got that right. I've got a topic that bothers me every day. I have a 19-year-old and a 22-year-old. They have to be drug tested for their jobs. Both of them have been employed since they were 14 and changed careers, and they work so hard. And how come the welfare people don't have to be drug tested when my sons are supporting them?
Okay, well, how come the politicians don't have to be drug tested? It would explain most of their policies. I am convinced that if we drug tested or forced Congress to pee in a cup like most American workers have to do, if you force the senators and the congressmen to pee in a cup, half of them would be thrown out of their job overnight. How many of them are impaired? You look at the things they say. You look at the things they vote on. They talk about global warming in the midst of this blizzard. You talk about global warming while people are trapped on the ice in the Antarctic. You have to assume that they're drugged, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I believe most of them are alcoholics also.
Okay, fine. Alcohol, put that on the list. Put alcohol on the list. Alcohol, marijuana. How about over-the-counter drugs, so-called medications? How many of our politicians are on medications that have impaired their capacity to think?
Most of them.
So listen, we have a big problem in this country. Drugs are the biggest problem of all. I think it's impairing the entire nation. I agree with you that if your kids are being drug tested to work, but welfare recipients are not, it's an example of how twisted everything is. Kathy, I'm going to send you a gift. I'm going to send you a copy of my last book called not Trickle Up Poverty, which is what Obama's been doing to America, but Trickle Down Tyranny, which is what Obama's been doing to America. Stay on the line. Phone number that opens up a line at 855-400-7282, 855-400-SAVAGE. Again, if you get through my call screener and you get on the Savage Nation this memorable day, you will reach more people than you've ever met in your entire life. Can you believe this? It's true. It is true. It is true. Las Vegas, Gene, KBET in Las Vegas. Gene, what's on your mind?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you.
I have been listening to you, and thank you for talking about the things that no one else talks about.
Well, give me an example of what I mentioned today that no one else has mentioned.
Not today, but because I just got messed up on the time frame because I used to listen to you 6 to 9, but like I work for the school district and I know all about the Common Core, but the curse.
Well, I'll tell you something I mentioned today that no one's talking about. The 22 Navy SEALs who were sent to their fiery deaths in Afghanistan a couple of years ago, they were killed, they were assassinated, they were executed. Or it was done because there's a moron working inside the Defense Department who did it to them. Either way, somebody should go to prison for this. How's that for a topic?
Yes, sir. And my nephew was a Navy SEAL. He just recently served 9 years for the United States.
Well, this is one of the greatest military scandals in American history. How could you lose more men in one mission than in the entire history of the Navy SEALs' entire history? And no one has been called on the carpet for it. Who put them in an old, slow-flying helicopter into a combat zone? Who made that decision? Who put them on an old Sea Cow from the Vietnam era? Why were they sent to their deaths? Were they sent to their deaths, or was it an accident? In either case, don't you think the grieving families are entitled to an investigation?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you. So do I. So do I. Ori, on the internet, one of the listeners who I don't know where you're from, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike, it's an honor to speak to you. I'm from New York, and I'm a young guy listening on the internet. You're spot on. The young people are going for Savage. I want to congratulate you first and foremost, and I'm also a radio talk show host myself in Yeshiva University. But I want to ask you, given your new time slot and given your new influence, how do you think you're going to be able to shape this upcoming election? I know you spoke about it.
Well, very simply, by exposing the progressives as the new communists to begin with, so people awaken to the rhetoric. Now, let's make it real simple. Keep it simple. The word progressive is a new code word for the new Marxism. Make no mistake about it. The same rhetoric coming out of their mouths can be heard in Havana to this day from Raul Castro. It's no different. It's been tried before. It leads to a disaster. It decimates the middle class. It destroys nations. It's like the plague. It's like locusts eating a nation alive.
Well, Michael, we both know how bad the Republican Party is as well, but come election time, what kind of influence are you going to, directly say Christie's a good guy, he's a good candidate, or are we going to...
Well, you know how I feel about that situation. He's not the best candidate. However, you know he's going to be put forward. You know he's a middle-of-the-roader. You know that he's going to sell out the entire conservative wing of the party. You know that's coming. We have to wait for the midterm elections before we get to 2016. The most important election of your life is coming up next November. That is when the fate of the Senate is in the hands of the people. If Obama is allowed to steal the election by flooding the polling booths with millions of illegal aliens, the country is finished forever. It's over. He must be stopped at all costs. We must not permit him to use executive orders to grant amnesty to the illegal aliens who are not citizens, have no right to vote. He did this already. How do you think he got reelected? Everyone seems to be stupid. Just before the last election, do you remember what he did? He granted amnesty to the so-called Dreamers. There were 4 million of them. What was his margin of victory over Romney? About 4 million. Do you think they didn't vote? Of course they voted. Hang up, okay? That's it. Say, look, the vote is the sacred thing here. And if you let them rig elections and steal votes, then you have nothing left at all. Nothing to hang on to, nothing whatsoever. Then you don't even have the will of the people. You have nothing. You have the will of the oligarchy, which is what we have right now. Just pay close attention to Obama coming back from his little Surf City, USA vacation on your dime, the highest number of vacations at the highest price of any president in history because he believes in fairness and he's a progressive, huh? How does that work? Well, it's been done before in the ex-Soviet Union. They preach the same garbage. If you read Animal Farm in high school, you saw the same garbage. They preach one thing and they live the other. In the ex-Soviet Union, they preached about equality and fairness and to help the poor. And all of the workers for the government, the bureaucrats, they all had country houses. They had chauffeured limousines. Does it sound familiar to you? And the people fought over one salami in the butcher store. That's progressivism for you. That's the face of progressivism. 855-400-7282 is the phone number. You're listening to the one and only Savage Nation. Give me 15 minutes and I'll give you America. I'll be right back.